Hello everyone and welcome to the first Blinkers Off for 2012. Hope you had great New Year's Eve and New Year's Day celebrations, but we're back on the road for a big year in 2012. And Chris Barsby is with us. How are you, Chris?
Very well, thanks, David.
Plenty of partying for you, was there?
Nah, pretty quiet for me, getting old now.
Exactly right. Well, speaking about getting old, you weren't born when this was going to happen. We're going to go down memory lane and look back to the opening of Albion Park way back in the late 60s.
Saturday, September 7, 1968, will be remembered as an historic moment in Queensland harness racing, or trotting as it was known then, when the first meeting was run under lights at the Albion Park Paceway. Months of preparation has gone into preparing the 800-metre right-handed track with a shell grit surface and a new-look hub rail, lower than the conventional running rail. The new track for night trotting was enclosed inside the Albion Park galloping track, with the Albion Park Trotting Club being a tenant of the Brisbane Amateur Turf Club, who ran thoroughbred racing there and at Doomben. The chairman of the Albion Park Trotting Club was Dr. Clive Ewer, who was also chairman of the Brisbane Amateur Turf Club. Lloyd Rees was his deputy, and Alan Frost, formerly of the Hawkesbury Trotting Club, was its first secretary-manager. The Trotting Club also used the services of BATC caterer Peter Norton, who employed a big staff to handle the expected bumper crowd for opening night in the members and public area. Check out a typical menu in the early days of night trotting. I suppose we have more mature taste these days, but the prices weren't bad, were they? Sam Zammit, still fighting fit today, created history when he won the first race under lights with a 5-year-old pacer named Curly Adios, who overcame barrier 10 to win the mobile qualifying championship over 10.5 furlongs and carrying a purse of $725 with $525 to the winner. The commencement of night trotting in Brisbane. Queensland's harness racing moment in time.
Yeah, some great archival footage there. It was a big thing when night trotting started in Queensland because there wasn't the opportunities or the alternatives for entertainment available what there are now. And it was a classic case where people would go to the races during the day and head to Albion Park Trots that night. Thousands of people, heaps of bookies, far cry from what it is today, but there were some great moments really there.
It's interesting when you talk to the younger brigade in harness racing now, and when you say, oh, the good old days, they just don't understand, what took place back in those days, but it was outstanding. Those big crowds, the atmosphere, it was a must-be situation. You must be at Albion Park on a Saturday night, but it's not the case anymore. And
at that time too, in 1968, a half-mile track was almost revolutionary because most of the tracks, such as Harold Park, was 3.5 furlongs. The showgrounds in Melbourne was 3 furlongs. Wavell, I think, was 2.5 furlongs in Adelaide at the showgrounds there. So to have a 4-furlong track was something quite unique and right-handed as well. Then, of course, we were there till 1983. It all changed around to a 1,000-metre left-handed track with a big new Russins grandstand, which is now gone. 1983 might be another time we might get our memory lane remembering. And that was the night I was there. I wasn't there in 68, but I was there in 83. But who knows what's ahead for Albion Park? It's something we discussed last week. Okay, we're going to go to a break. This is Blinkers Off, our first edition in 2012. We're back with more shortly. Welcome back to the show. I take special pride in the fact that Daryl Graham has been such a success story in harness racing. We, in a way, grew up together in the sport, being of similar age, but he's had great achievements, and we're going to profile those tonight in our feature with Daryl Graham.
Daryl Graham is a busy man, there's no doubt about that, but it's going to get even busier for Daryl in the next couple of months because he's about to hit the road with his 2 stable stars, Lanacoste and Courageous Annie. I thought I'd drop in on Daryl and just find out what the plans actually are with his 2 stable stars. Daryl, so far, have you enjoyed the ride with Lanacoste?
So far, so good, yeah.
Tell us about the story right from the start. You got him from New Zealand and ready to run sale.
Yeah, we sort of go over every year to the ready to runs, and we just sort of do a little bit of homework on him, and he was one of the ones that sort of come up that year, and we got him at the right price. That was good.
And right from the start, he showed that he was above average.
Actually, we bought a few that year. Highview Spirit was another one, and he showed a lot more ability than Lanercost.
He was a lot more expensive too, wasn't he?
Yeah. One was the cheap one and one was the dear one. It just seemed to work out that way. But you were saying before about Barton driving him in an education, and that's why I drove Highview Spirit the whole time. And even in the Seymour that year when they both qualified, I was going to drive Highview Spirit and Chris was going to drive Lanercost. And then Highview Spirit had that trouble with his foot, and I scratched him and ended up driving Lanercost. So, yeah, that was they both used to work together, and he'd sit on Lanercost's back and just peel out and go straight past him. So, but I suppose in one respect it was good that he learned how to go quick.
Yeah, too right. His 2-year-old season was fantastic. Never missed a place. I suppose the Breeders' Crown, it was the end of the season. It was his big grand final. You were so close yet so far away, but you run into a top liner in Smiling Shard.
Yeah, we beat him a couple of weeks before just in a normal race, and then they split us up in the semi-final. So I thought, he might have had the wood on him, but the cunning Kiwis, they brought him over, and that was his sort of first run for a little while, and they just left a little bit up their sleeve. And actually, it was a very good tactical drive by Dexter, because my guy just sort of got in on the last turn, and he really put it to me from the quarter, and that furlong around the bend, he actually had me over a couple of pegs, and to his credit, he sort of got me there.
The 3-year-old campaign, again, very good. What were the big highlights for you in his 3-year-old season?
The Tassie races, I suppose. They were good. To win Australian Derbies, always good.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, he's just sort of so consistent all the way through. Them couple of races in Melbourne, I think it was the Caduceus Club when he went very good down there, and he was always sort of there, and then just sort of reeling off good times, and even though he's reeling off good times, sometimes he got beat.
Again, in the Breeders' Crown, he was close, but he just wasn't close enough.
Yeah, well, he was. That was probably the only time that we did start him that maybe we shouldn't have started him. He was just going off, but I had a discussion with Dean sort of the week leading up to it, and even Linda and the girls were coming down, and I rang them on the Thursday and said, don't bother coming, and because he was having a real good break after that race, we decided to start him. So again, he was thereabouts. I copped a bit of a pay from the Franco Jamar camp for handing up at the half, but that's racing,
That's the only time he's missed the place, and he still earned a check because he run 4th. But just on the Franco Jamar thing, he's a superior horse than Franco Jamar. His record proves it, and most times you've clashed with Franco Jamar, you've always had the wood on him.
Yeah, I suppose early days he has been, but we haven't met him since Luke's got him. So, that's the thing, you've got to always sort of take that into account. I think Luke's got the horse and take him to the next level. So, I still, like I say, I still wouldn't jump off him to drive Franco Jamar. But
I'll talk more about that a little bit later, but just on the 4-year-old season, probably the best thing that's happened for Lanercost is Menangle, because the love affair that he has for that track is unbelievable. His record speaks for itself. The Chariots of Fire, the Jewel in the Crown, that was the one big race that you and Dean set out to win, and you achieved it. So it must have been a very satisfying night for you that night.
Yeah, it was good. It's a lovely track, and you can talk about sort of Lanercost smoking up and them sort of horses loving it, but I think every horse loves it. And we've taken horses down there like Roland Red Rocket and horses that's got a little bit of a hitch in their gait or whatever. I just can't wait if and when we get one up here. It's just going to be fantastic. There's so many people that sort of live back in the dark ages that still want half-mile tracks and 1,000-metre tracks and everything. I just say to them, Mark Dux just went down there the other day, and I just said, what did you think? He said, well, you don't even realise you're going around the bend. Until they get down there and have a look at it, they might not say it's a spectacle sport anymore, blah, blah, blah. But until they have a look at it, until they drive on it, until they put the horses on it, it's just amazing.
And obviously for the horse itself, just so much easier for the horse. They don't have the problems that they do, or that they face when they're racing on these smaller, tighter tracks.
Well, there's just less pressure on their legs going around bends, and okay, they're going quicker, but there's just less pressure on the big turns, and horses get their confidence and the way they go. Like some horses I took down there, they just got their confidence and they come back here and they race better.
Yeah. Just on Lanarkos and touching on his form, we've mentioned Franco Jamar. During the Chariots of Fire campaign, you beat up on a bit of Bliss. As it stands, now they're probably two of the most exciting horses racing. How does that make you feel? Have you been able to just sit back and just take it all in, what they've achieved, and think, I've got a horse that's as good, if not better than these guys?
Yeah, well, it's...
David Hercules is another one.
Yeah, it's sort of, we watched them and watched the races and thought, well, gee whiz, I wish I was there, but you can't be everywhere, so that was the thing about it. We had that little hiccup in Melbourne, we've come back, we've looked after him, and after his trial on Tuesday, I'm very glad where we're at and the way things are going. So, it's I can't wait to get back and play with the big boys now, because that's where he is and that's what he's going to have to do. So, it's going to be fun.
Just on the management of Lanarkos, it's something that you're very mindful of. You have to be when you're racing at the elite level, but you've got to give some credit, no doubt, to Dean Shannon, because he must be a dream owner, just the way that he just says, do what's right for the horse, do what's right for you.
Yeah, well, that's the thing about it. He always says horse comes first. So, and
he's always been that way, hasn't he?
Yeah. And over the last few years, since I've got the Lanarkos and Courageous Annies and them, he's become a lot more involved. He gets a lot more excited about them sorts of races, and whereas before he'd sort of say, "Oh, we'll do what you want to do." Now it's a discussion. We talk to one another about it, and we just sort of bounce things off one another, which is good. I like it that way, because it's sort of not all up to me. But it's good, and like I've always said since day one with him, I learn a lot through sort of Roland Big Red. I think we raced him a little bit too much, too often, okay, he won a carousel and whatever, but he probably could have gone on and done a little bit more. He done a nice job, but and also the Nutley Rasmussen Black's a Fake journey. If you couldn't learn anything off that, you're a dummy.
Yeah. Also with Dean, it's got to be great for his family, his wife Kelly and the kids. They must love it as well.
Yeah. They like people say, oh, Dean doesn't go to the races, but he gets more enjoyment sitting at home watching it with his family. He said to me it was a real big night when Annie won the Oaks, like the family and the kids were there, and he said he got a little bit emotional, so it was good.
And it's been a big journey for Dean. Like he come onto the scene quickly, he was buying a lot of horses, but he's finally got what he's been setting out to achieve in horses like Lanarkos and Courageous Annie, but he's paid his dues.
Yeah, well, it was early days. We were sort of going over and buying a few tried New Zealand horses and breeding a couple, and how the Roland Big Red saga come about. He sort of shifted a few horses interstate, and I was just sort of to train the Q-breeders, and I looked for Q-bred horses in the trot get every week, and that's how Red come up. So we've sort of gone through different stages, and then we had the big dispersal sale and got rid of everything, and sort of just concentrated on here, and then the Ready to Runs come along, and he's open to everything, Dean. Like there could be another thing around the corner that might sort of take his fancy, and but it has been good, and I'm just glad he's got some nice horses.
Yeah, absolutely. Just on Lanarkos, he's now a 5-year-old. There's basically no place to hide for him anymore. He's out of his age group racing, and as we discussed earlier, he's got to meet and play with the big boys every time he goes out to race nowadays.
Oh, that's right. That's what I said to you on the radio the other day, and there's nowhere to hide now. You've just got to go out there, and the way he's been working and the way he trialled the other day, I'm ready to go. It's all systems go. Let's take them on.
We're just going to pause at this point, but still more about Daryl Gray. We can't get enough of him. We'll take a break. Be back with more shortly. Welcome back to the program, and we continue now our profile on Daryl Gray.
What are we looking at? There's endless options with a horse like Lanarkos. You've mentioned the Victoria campaign early next year. Inter Dominion, what are we looking at?
Yeah, well, we've nominated him and Annie, so he's probably 99% sure to go, and she's 50-50, you know, so we've just got to look at. I was talking to Dean the other day, you know, about ladyship miles and chariots and all them sorts of things. If you're looking at them, you can't go to Perth, you know. So with the configuration now in Perth of just 9 horses, it become a lot more enticing to a horse like him because of his gate speed and everything. So you know, when that all come about, and we've sat down and had a discussion about it, it was that's probably, you know, I don't know. We've got to look at, see how everything falls into place, whether we miss the 100k, I don't know, but you know, we've got to sort that out.
Cross that bridge when you get to it. Looking further afield, a race like the Miracle Mile next season, he's going to be 6. You would assume he'd be at the peak of his powers, physically, mentally. Is that a race that's high on your radar?
It was this year.
Oh, really? Okay.
It was this year. No one knew anything about it, and we actually after the chariots down there, we'd penciled it in. We were going to go to Melbourne, get through that, give him a short break, and then go back to the Miracle Mile. But the way things turned out, it never happened that way. But yeah, it'll be definitely high again on the agenda this year.
Quick hypothetical just on this year's Miracle Mile, and this is an answer that we'll never know. Do you reckon you could have led that field in the Miracle Mile?
Well, I think he got out in 25.8 there one night from when he drew 9 or 10. So Dean sent me a text straight after the race and said we would have been in it up to our ears. So
I'm sure of it.
Yeah, but we weren't there, so we'll never know.
Another thing about Lanercost, he's been the subject of a lot of interest as a commercial stallion, and this goes right back to his early 3-year-old days. Is there still interest in him?
We haven't heard much last year, but like John Coffey said, he's just got to sort of keep performing, and you know, and every time we raise the bar, he just keeps stepping up over it. So, but Dean just said to him then too, he's having a lot of fun racing the horse.
Yeah.
So when we decide to, you know, retire him, you know, that might be the first call.
He's got a lot of commercial appeal though, doesn't he?
Yeah, he's a lovely horse. He's very good gaited, very fast. You know, that's the thing about him. He's so quick. Like his point-to-point speed is unbelievable. So I've never driven anything quicker. So like I say, he gets you out of a lot of strife sometimes.
Well, that leads me into my next topic, Courageous Annie. She's just lightning fast.
Yeah, she's like her sectional in the ready to run was a 24.8 quarter or something, and I just thought, well, you know, that might be wrong, but it was a howling wind sort of up there, sort of back going down the front straight there at Ashburton, but still, my theory was, and Dean's theory was, well, I've still got to put their feet in the right spot, so she'd have to be, you know, a pretty good balance pacer to do that. So. She wasn't actually on the radar, but when she was in the ring, he just thought for what she'd done, she was a pretty cheap buy, you know. So he bought her, and we've probably taken a little bit of speed away from her, I suppose. I sort of don't really know, because she's that sort of horse, a little bit different to Lanercost, where you can light him up and he'll come back to you. I'm a little bit scared to light her up because she don't want to come back to you. So. I just sort of let her do what she wants to do, and like in that Gold Coast Oaks, it shows as soon as you upset her, it's typical filly, he just doesn't want to be there.
Just on her 2-year-old season, it was good, but it could have been a lot better. She was unlucky in the nursery pace. Yeah,
well, we had sort of, you know, feed issues with her as a 2-year-old and a little bit as a 3-year-old, so her run in the heat of the nursery pace was extraordinary if you know the amount of work she had going into it. Like, she was only just jogging and walking and having a little canter here, and after the race Dean said, "Oh, that was a good run." I said, "Well, it was an exceptional run. If you know what she had done here on the track at home because of the problems we had with her feet, normally you wouldn't start." But again, that was a sort of the last thing for the season, and we knew she was going to go for a spell.
The 3-year-old campaign, we've touched on Menangle being a great track. She just thrived on that big track down there. Highlight, without doubt, the Group 1 New South Wales Oaks. She just loves that track as well.
Yeah, again, you know, like, and you sort of, you know, you probably I know Luke drives the track good down there. People say, oh, you give them a shot and and everything like that, but you had horses like Vertigal and speed horses in it, but I think she's superior toughness, So you sort of just, I had it in the back of my mind that we had to run up the back to get the sprint out of the sprinters. So you leave yourself a little bit of an open shot, but you've got to do it that way.
It was a good quality field. You've mentioned Vertigal. Aussie Made Lombo was another top flight filly in that field. So you beat them, and you beat them pretty easy as well.
Yeah, well, she's got crossed at the start, and then we've ended up sort of coming around again. But I didn't really want Aussie Made Lombo on my back, but the way it turned out, again, we sort of couldn't really light her up off the gate. So, again, Chris doing his homework, well, he knew where he wanted to be. So I knew she was there, but you just had to, drive for your horse.
She went 52 at Menangle, 52 and a piece, but probably the thing that's lost on a lot of people, she sat park the entire trip that night. I think Lanakos has got a 52 mile against his name down there. She's got a 52 mile, but she sat park. It just speaks volumes for her ability.
Yeah, well, she went 52.6 and he went 52.5. So, and like you say, she sat outside him. Shannon Watson, who's one of the track guys down there, good bloke, and he spent a lot of time in the States. He sort of does takes the reins off you when you do the presentation, whatever, and he was just shaking his head and said, they don't do that, He said, I've never seen them do that in the States. He said, they normally just sit there and drop out. But, she's her sort of, courageous, I suppose that's what she's courageous any, but her willingness to win is just unbelievable.
Just on that campaign, how many do you take away?
Probably half a dozen. There's her and Nana Cost and Signed Inverell and probably a couple of 3-year-olds, whether they're up to the derbies or not, I don't know, but I think sometimes when you take them away and race them better horses, it just sort of makes them take the next step. And maybe a 2-year-old or two just to keep us busy.
Busy times ahead, no doubt. Just on your future, where do you see yourself in 10 years' time?
Probably not here with all the houses around us.
It's growing rapid fire.
Yeah. When we first moved out here, you'd drive down the driveway and it was a dead-end road, and you used to drive straight up here. But that's progress, I suppose. But I don't know. I've always said that when we sell here, I'll just set up a little stable somewhere and just. People say, "Oh, if you sell, you'll get out of the sport." Blah blah. But I love training horses, so I'll be still training horses somewhere.
You're a proud Queenslander. I suppose that question also largely depends on what the future holds here in this state as well in 10 years' time. Who knows where we're going to be?
Yeah, well, that's right. I'd certainly love to stay. A for the family. But it's just easy. You can work your horses up here. Like we could have been in Melbourne the last month, 2 months, but we've sort of prepared them all here. Then we put them in a truck and you take them there. So it's an overnight trip to Sydney. So it's a 2-day trip to Melbourne. So we've got the trucks or the vehicles or whatever to do it. So I still like Queensland as a lifestyle and whatever here. So but to train 5 or 6 or whatever quality horses, you've still probably got to have about 25, 30 in work.
I suppose also it depends on your wife Linda and the 2 girls, what they want to do as well. I'm sure they'd rather stay here than pack up and move interstate. Yeah,
well, like I say, it's the family comes first. So in 10 years' time, Brittany will be grown up and moved out or whatever. Maybe, I don't know. she might still be at home. I don't know. But it just all depends what the kids do and what they want to do. But it's more lifestyle for me than sort of training horses. Dean or John might want to hear that, but that's I've sort of put a lot into it with travelling. Like gee whiz, for the last probably 15 years. Well, I was travelling horses when I was at Mully, so 20 years. And we took Furies Finito away and all them sorts of things. So I've always loved travelling, but I always loved coming back to Queensland.
Well, time will only tell where you end up and what you achieve. Appreciate your time this morning. Good luck with the upcoming campaign with all the stars as well.
Thanks, mate.
Yes, well, it was a good interview there, Chris. Very interesting interview. He speaks very well, Daryl Graham, doesn't he? He's been a real success story, as I said at the start.
He's a professional. There's no doubt about that. On and off the track, he's a great trainer driver, and he's a professional when he's not at the races. He's still spruiking the sport. He loves it. He outlined that during the interview, so he wouldn't want to be doing anything else. And he's got some great stock to work with, headed up by Lanercost and Courageous Annie. So we wish Daryl and Dean Shannon, the owner of both of those posters, the very best of luck. It could be a big season for both Daryl and Dean with those two stars.
Certainly could. Thanks for your time, Chris.
Thanks, David.
Chris Barsby with us on Blinkers Off. Thanks for your time, folks, and we'll be back again next Monday night for another edition with all the latest in Queensland harness racing. Until then, good night for now.